The Monkey Mind Podcast, your number one platform for athletes and mental health. Hosted by Danny Perez and Anthony Florentino.
This is episode 64 featuring Chase Pearson. Chase plays for the Grand Rapids Griffins in the American Hockey League. He's a good buddy of mine and a former teammate at the University of Maine. But before we get into the episode, we have a quick word from our sponsor. This podcast is proudly brought to you by Daily Dose CBD Inc. Daily Dose CBD Inc. creates full-spectrum CBD products ranging from tinctures, balms, and dog treats. Research has shown that CBD has successful results in aiding in the following areas: anti-inflammation, anxiety, PTSD, help with breaking addiction, neuroprotection, epilepsy, arthritis, chronic pain, and sleeping disorders. Daily Dose makes an extremely safe and effective product that we know you will love, enjoy, and benefit from. Daily Dose has given Monkey Mind listeners 15% off all their orders. Head over to dailydosecbdinc.com and use promo code MonkeyMind15 for 15% off your purchases. That's promo code MonkeyMind15 for 15% off all your orders at dailydosecbdinc.com.
Yeah, let's do it.
Word, let's get into it then.
Let's do it.
All right, Pierce. All right, we got my buddy Chase Pearson on, former college teammate at the University of Maine, current pro hockey player in the American League. Let him introduce himself. But yeah, Chase Pearson, welcome on.
Everyone, Danny, thanks for having me, man. It's good to be here. Finally get on the podcast.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess just a little backstory. Name's Chase. I met Danny at Maine. Grew up playing in Alpharetta, Georgia, hockey. So I got into it because of my dad. Kind of typical upbringing, play minor hockey, then go all the way up through juniors, eventually to Maine, where, like I said, Danny and I met. So yeah, that's the shortened story.
Yeah. Well, so people can get a deeper background, kind of just talk about like where you played and kind of some of your hockey experiences and opportunities you've had and where you're playing now.
Yeah, man. So I guess, the Atlanta Fire was my minor hockey team. I played from mite hockey up until my first year midget, which would be 16U. So after that year, I left and went to Cornwall, Ontario, which is actually where I was born. And I stayed with family there, played for the Cornwall Colts in the CCHL. And then from there, I was lucky enough to drafted to Youngstown, the USHL. Went to play there for 2 years, and then Maine recruited me. So the rest was history. After that, went to Maine. I guess I could mention I was drafted in 2015 out of the USHL to the Detroit Red Wings. And then anyways, went to Maine from there, from Youngstown, spent 3 years there, lucky enough to meet you. And then left my junior year to go play in Grand Rapids in the American Hockey League.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. Obviously, you were a leader at school or a captain junior year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we overlapped by, what was it, 3 years or 2?
Yeah. So through 3, yeah, all 3 years.
Yeah. We were supposed to be in the same class too. I remember that. I remember walking in first. Yeah. Your stall was up there.
High school, man. I wanted to take my time.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. But yeah, obviously, platform for athletes to talk about their mental health. If you want to kind of share your story from a mental health standpoint of, kind of some of the things that you struggle with, but also, most importantly, how you're doing now and just how you've overcome that stuff. And obviously, with the bad comes the good. And I'm sure there's lessons that have been learned and ways that you've learned to kind of deal with that stuff. So if we can just kind of talk about that.
Yeah, bro. So, I mean, I'm sure you've had a lot of people on here and they all talk about all their own experiences, and everyone's experience is different, right? Like my experience in hockey is way different than yours, which is way different from the next guy. But I think one constant is at some point in everyone's career, right? Like you're not always going to be great at hockey. I'm sure there's stuff off the ice that affects people too. So, you have this platform, which I think is amazing to allow people to come talk about, some of those experiences. And I, personally, I've had many times where people probably think you're doing great or whatever, right? But there's always another story, another aspect of your life that, someone's probably struggling with. And, me personally, I've been affected in my personal life or whatever, but hockey wise, I know how hard it is. You get up, you train, you go skate at practice. And when we were in school, like you go to school all day and, if you're not playing, if you're not getting the minutes you want, then all of that affects, how you're feeling. Right. And I think that this being a good outlet in order to just kind of let people know that like, you're not alone no matter if you feel alone, if something's going wrong, if you think it's going wrong, you know, at the end of the day, it's just a sport, right? Yeah, and I think that kind of helped me stay level-headed throughout my career so far. You know, just kind of realize it's a sport. There's way more to life than sports, but I mean, I care about it, but at the
Yeah.
same time, you know, you got to realize that everyone around you too is probably more than happy to talk about whatever you're going through.
Yeah. No, I agree.
I was all over the place there, but
No. I do agree. And I think it's like, I mean, for me, I didn't gain that perspective of it's just a sport until not playing this past year.
Yeah.
Because when you're in it and you're so invested in it, it's all you think about. It's all you identify with. So for you to have that perspective now that you're still involved in the sport and playing at such a high level and so such a bright future ahead of you, I think it's only going to be beneficial for you to realize that, hey, like I love this so much, but it's not everything in my life. Like I am yet, you know, you're separating yourself from the player and the person of Chase Pearson, the hockey player.
Yeah.
Because it can be detrimental to just like identify yourself completely as I'm a hockey player and that's it. Like there is more to life to that, you know?
Without question, man. And I think, you know, the biggest person to kind of show me that was Mitch Fossier, name, but he was always so good at that, you know, just separating, getting away from Mitch Fossier as a person as opposed to Mitch Fossier as an athlete. And I think you said it well. Like you have to be able to do that in order to just, you know, check out too. That's important, right? But you have to realize that, you know, there's some other thing to life than this. I don't want to say stupid sport because I love it, but
yeah, of course.
At the end of the day, if you're sacrificing mental health to play a game, like, is it worth it in the end, right?
No, and I think in turn from having that mentality shift, you do find yourself doing better in your sport because the weight that it carries is a little bit. It's a different type of weight. It's more so I love this and I'm doing this sport because I love it and I'm going to let it be that as opposed to like, this is going to give me an end goal. And this, if I'm not where I want to be, then it's going to make me feel like a shit person. Like, no, it's just, hey, like this is something I love to do and I'm just going to enjoy it for what it is. And having that perspective shift, I definitely think, I mean, you could speak from your own experience, but I'm sure it's had positive effects on your play and how you feel on the ice and stuff.
Definitely, man. And I think like, at the end of the day, you have to care, but like, especially when you're on the ice, you got to play with confidence, right? And if you're in your own head and you're not in the right state of mind, you're not going to play to the way you're capable of. So to be able to separate that and just realize like, hey, like take a breath here for a sec. I'm good. This is just a game. No matter how many times I mess up, like I'm probably going to go back out there.
Yeah.
Can have a chance to redeem myself, right? So I don't know. That's just how I think about it sometimes.
What were some of the things that Mitch kind of told you that has helped you with that shift in mentality?
Honestly, the biggest thing for me realizing was like find a passion outside of the game too, because it helps you not only check out from whatever you're doing or whatever sport you're in, right? It can't just even, you know, baseball, football, whatever. It doesn't have to be hockey, but find a passion outside of the game. Work on that. Obviously, you have a passion for whatever sport you're playing, but to be able to kind of check out and distract yourself is very important, right? Because once your career ends, you're going to have to be able to do something else. And I think if you have that passion beforehand, before it's over, looking at the end of your career, I mean, it's inevitable. Everyone's never going to play forever, right? So if you have that passion while you're playing, it's going to be an easier transition. And even while you're playing, like I said, check out and just kind of, you know, refocus on whatever you need to.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is finding that before you get out. We've had a couple of players who had made this transition from hockey to real life, and that was their biggest advice from them who didn't have anything else prior. And they're like, well, I was done with the game, and then I'm finding myself scrambling for something, and now you're like backed in a corner, and you feel to find it sooner than later. Whereas like if you can kind of discover that stuff while you're playing and while you're in it, you know, it makes that transition, you know, smoother. But I'm sure, you know, from a playing perspective, while you're in it, it's just a great way for you to have an outlet to not go home and dwell on a practice or a game or whatever. It's giving you something else to think about other than just lay in bed and be like, oh, this like bad game or whatever.
Yeah, exactly, man. And I think like whether that's music, you know, I like to play music sometimes. That's super fun. But also I feel like having a plan too. So like if you're in a sport, play hockey, whatever, if you do it for a living, great, but that's going to come to an end, right? So you got to be thinking 2-3 steps ahead no matter what, because then at least for me, it eases my mind knowing like, hey, okay, great. my career's done. What do I want to do? All right, I want to get into real estate. Great. I want to learn about real estate while I'm playing. So then it kind of eases my mind as far as like, oh, if I got hurt tomorrow and was never able to play again, I'd know exactly what I want to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. From a non-hockey standpoint, how has, talk about like kind of your mental health journey as far as that goes, and
Yeah.
whatever you feel comfortable talking about, just kind of some, experiences in your life and things that, you've dealt with that have kind of put you to a bad spot and, obviously overcome that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess I probably had the most non-typical off-ice experience as a child, even growing up, right? Like growing up, great parents. Dad was awesome. Mom was great. Like as I got older, the relationship kind of started to deteriorate. Anyways, my mom started drinking and stuff, which was, as a child, like I didn't really know what was going on, right? Like I just come home from school and she'd be sleeping, but she's really passed out from drinking, right? So like I saw that. Looking back now, like I noticed that was going on, and I understand now, which I put two and together makes me sad. But a lot of people do deal with that. So for me, that happening outside of a young age kind of made me grow up in a sense, a little faster. Even at that age, I'd come home, take care of my sister for a bit, because my mom's sleeping or whatever for 3 hours, and it helped me grow up a little fast. I don't say help me because it obviously messed me up a bit, right? But anyways, yeah. So kept on chugging, right? I use hockey kind of as an escape from all of that personal life, which I guess is good in a sense. But and then I mean, this, people don't. After my freshman year at Maine, my mom committed suicide, which was a shock. I was devastated. I'm still am devastated, right? It's your mom. You never want to lose them. But at the end of the day, like she had some demons and had some problems herself that were never dealt with, right? And so now having platforms and having resources and having all this stuff around me, I realize like how important it is to talk about whatever's going on, right? Like she never talked to me about what was going on before any of this stuff happened. She never mentioned a single word. Like I had no idea she was in that state of mind, right? And then so when that happens, it came as a complete shock because I was just got a text or call from my sister, like she was crying, like mom's gone. I was like, what do you mean? She committed suicide. So it probably happens more than you think, but until it affects you, you don't think about it, right? And so when I tell people, make sure you tell people you love them all the time, right? Because you never know. You truly never know what anyone's going through. And like I could be, this great hockey player, this smart guy, whatever. Like I could still be really messed up, and no one would have any idea. I could be depressed. I could be whatever, and no one would know unless you talk about it. So I think it's important from my perspective now, gaining this experience of losing my mom and all this stuff, just being available for people and letting everyone know that like I'm there to talk. Like call me if anything's going on, right? And most people won't do that. So for me, it's like having that experience, I've been able to kind of take a step back too, right? And now I look at life a little differently than I would, but there's positives and negatives. Like I lost my mom forever. Like she's not gonna see my kids grow up as when I get married and have children, or whatever. Like that's super sad for me, and it makes me, it hurts me every time I have to think about stuff like that. But at the same time, positive was she was struggling. She felt like that was the only way to deal with whatever was going on in her life. So she's in a better place because of how hurt she was, and none of us knew that. But so I've had to deal with that along with all the stuff that goes along with being a normal human person, athlete, whatever. So and I will say, like, I've seen a therapist ever since that happened, right? I haven't, like, I'll tell anyone, I need that in order to stay sane, right? Like, then you learn to live with it instead of getting over it, which I think has helped me a lot. But see this therapist, at least once every couple of weeks, which helps me just get whatever off my chest I need to, right? So.
Yeah, talk about well, obviously, I mean, we've talked, I was there for you when this happened, but obviously, say it again, I'm sorry, and no one should ever have to live with that sort of hurt and deal with it, but that obviously. But we talked about therapy a lot. I've talked about my personal experience with therapy. Other people have with theirs too. And I'm all for it. I'm a big proponent of it. But a lot of people are very skeptical and have tried it, but I don't think they've tried it with an open mind, understandably so. Their thought process is, I don't want to tell somebody I don't know my problems. Then you have other people who are like, well, I don't know them, so I'll tell them anything they want to hear. I'm never going to see them again. So for you, with your personal experience with therapy, kind of talk about that and what that was like, and how you've grown from that. Obviously, it's had a positive effect on you, and kind of just like, yeah, like your experience and process with that.
Yeah. So just to be completely blunt, like I was super closed off before anything happened with my mom. And then after it happened, family was like, go to therapy, go to therapy. For the first 6 months, I was like, no, I'm fine. Like, leave me alone. Don't talk to me. I'm good. I'll just deal with this. And I tried to just bury it in myself. And I will say it took me a good 5 months of like, I went online because I just felt like that's the easiest instead of having to go in person. Some people may feel differently, but for me, that works. Took me like a good 5-6 months of trying to find someone who I felt like was a good match. But once I found that person, it's just helped me like tremendously. I can't even put it in words, to be quite honest. Like any aspect of my life just helped me deal with, get on my chest whatever I need, work through whatever feelings I have. And some people are completely against telling your personal life story to someone you have no idea who they are, right? But then I will say, like, they're trained in this, they took classes, they know how to deal with certain things. But I think it's a matter of finding someone who you trust at the end of the day, or you'll work on that trust obviously over time, right? Because they get to know you. But finding the person you feel like will be good to work with, which is hard.
Are you seeing this person on a consistent basis still, you'd say?
Yeah.
Okay.
Every week it's been like 3 years now.
And I think it's different for everybody too. I think some people it's quicker than others. Like, I mean, for me, I just go through these episodes where I have to see someone for a couple months and then I'm fine.
Yeah.
For others, it's years, and it's a process that'll, you have to keep going through. And I think you said it best is when you mentioned about, not feeling comfortable talking about, to someone that you don't know. But then you made the comment of, well, they're the professionals and they have tools that they can give you. And that's like, I think the biggest thing is like, you have to change your mindset of, I don't know this person, I don't trust them, to, like you said, I'm going to build this trust, and they're professionals. They're going to eventually, in turn, give me tools that are going to help me cope and have a different perspective on it. And I think that's the biggest thing is kind of getting over that hump of not wanting to talk to somebody about it like a professional.
100%. And for me, the first, however many months, I was like, why do I need to do this, right? And then I realized that it's helped me work through stuff. But coming in with an open mind is huge, and it's really hard to do that sometimes, right? It's not easy to go in with an open mind, especially when you feel like you don't need it. I mean, maybe people don't need it, right? Haven't been through traumatic stuff, but I feel like at some point in everyone's life, they go through something that, talking to someone could be beneficial about. So,
What are some of the tools that you've learned just seeing a therapist, or like, I guess the biggest takeaways for you that you've learned so far?
So like normally when I'm going into a session, you just kind of flow with the conversation, right? But holistically, for me, the biggest thing, and I talk about what happened with my mom a lot, right? Because for me, that's the hardest thing to deal with on a consistent basis. But with that specifically, it's learning to live with it and not get over it. Like, you're never going to forget it, right? But you have to learn to live with it. And I think that can be applied in a lot of different aspects of life, right? Like, you can learn to live with stuff instead of getting over it completely, right? Because something might, like, let's say you go through a big breakup with someone you love, right? Yeah, you can like theoretically get over it, right? But if you love them truly, you'll probably love them forever. It just wasn't the right person for you. So you kind of learn to live with it instead of completely get over it. And I think letting myself realize that is something that I have to do has made it easier to just kind of deal with stuff day to day.
Yeah, it's tough to go through something like that, and I can only imagine kind of how experience was. But I think that's why, I created this platform for that reason, because at the end of the day, that's the ultimate price, and then it affects other people as well. And I don't ever want to get to that point from people that I know. So Because once, that decision's made, there's no going back. And, as someone who's had some pretty dark thoughts and, you know, I know how low it is, how, what it's like to feel that low and stuff. So, just being there for people and, you express the importance of opening up and feeling comfortable and, people are there for you and it's okay to feel like shit for lack of a better term and be in some tough spots, but ultimately you can get out of it. And there are people who love and care for you and, people that want to help at the end of the day. I mean,
Definitely, man. And kudos to you for taking the step forward and actually doing this, man. This is like, I never expected Danny Perez to be doing a podcast like this to talk about mental health, but
yeah,
like, it's a big step forward, man. I'm proud of you. But
yeah,
thanks for having me on, bro. And this has been amazing to talk about this and just kind of have a platform too. And I don't, not to tell everyone my story, but just like maybe if not just one person sees this and they're like, hey, like this kid's gone through that or this or whatever,
yep.
right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like I can get through that.
No,
But
exactly.
as you touched on earlier, you said like you've dealt with stuff, I've dealt with stuff. I'm sure everyone listening has something that they're dealing with, and
Mm-hmm.
like just learning to see that and know that everyone around you is probably hurt at some point in their life.
Exactly.
And
Well,
just care for people and kind of have an open perspective, even when you meet new people,
mm-hmm.
right? Like I now I come in with an open mind to most things.
No, 100%. And you know how you saw me at school, like I was such a clown, like, lived at the hockey house, like hosting the parties, doing the social, like going out a ton. Like it looked like I was like having a blast, but at that point in my life, like, I also at the same time was getting like 3 minutes a night. I was in a suit for like a month and a half. Like deep down, I was going through something pretty hard and it was pretty like, but I was just displaying it as like this clown. And so like, I guess like knowing that I was hiding something and like knowing that other people are hiding stuff too has kind of been the biggest reason as to why I did this. And like you said earlier, it's not about like, me telling my story. It's all about me. Like, no, it's not about that. It's just you giving your perspective and telling your story so that other people can resonate with the message and understand like, okay, like now another kid's breaking the barrier and opening up the conversation to something. And, just hoping that like a couple people here and there listen to it and understand, like, can kind of give that sigh of relief of like, all right, I'm not the only one who is struggling or dealing
Yeah.
with something, like you have a unique story and, in my opinion, one that should be heard because it's not the first time, it's not the last time, unfortunately. And if there's someone else who's going through something or maybe potentially thinking the same thoughts, um, hopefully we can stop and just know that they're loved and we can make a
Yeah.
difference, that we're there for them essentially.
Oh, 100%, man. And that's, like you said, this platform, just even if one person hears it, it's worth all of the time you put into it, right? That maybe they're thinking, they want to hurt themselves or whatever, and they hear an episode of Danny Perez on Monkey Mind, and they're like,
yeah,
maybe people actually love me. Like maybe people around me just sometimes aren't even aware of their own feelings. Like I don't know. Maybe for me, that's the biggest thing too, is just opening up. And a lot of times I was always like, oh, I'm this big macho man. Like I can't talk about my feelings. I can't cry. Like, man, I bawled my eyes out. Like you've seen me bawl my eyes out, bro. It's not like everyone does at some point.
mm-hmm.
Like if you tell me you've never cried, like you're bullshitting for sure. That's not true. Everyone's not cried at some point.
Exactly.
You were a baby once, bro. You were bawling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, exactly. No, exactly. I think
did it.
just getting comfortable with those feelings, understanding that, just understanding those feelings and where they're coming from, I think is important because constantly hiding them and kind of suppressing them does absolutely no good. I think it does the complete opposite.
Just balloons. And
exactly.
at one point it'll come out in some way that you don't want it to.
Mm-hmm. No, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I mean, obviously, how we kind of segue into like, we don't want to take up too much of your time, but if you had one piece of advice that you would give somebody who is struggling or going through the exact same thing that you've gone through, or just going in a tough place, or something that you would have wanted yourself to know, what would that be?
Honestly, like I kind of give two perspectives. Like if I'm a person going through something, I would want to know that people are there for me. And like I've said this, 10 times already in this podcast, but just being more available as a person to people and letting everyone around know as a friend, right? Like, because if you're going through something and I'm sitting here like I'm fine and I don't even ask you like, hey man, how you doing, right? But then also as the person who is in the position where they're depressed or whatever, right? Like talk about it. Don't think you're burdening other people either, because I know I felt like I burdened people talking about my mom or talking about anything in my personal life. Like, you're not burdening people. They would rather you say something and have a 2-hour conversation where you're expressing what's going on, right? Like, most people are going to sit down and listen if you tell them you're not okay, right?
Yeah.
And I think the hardest thing about that is just knowing people will listen if you want them to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, yeah. And anyone who doesn't listen or doesn't respect it, I think it's a very good way of knowing that they,
Get them out of your life, bro.
exactly.
If they don't care about you and you're like, hey, I'm hurting, and they're like, well, get over it.
Yeah.
Get out of my life,
No, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I've been called a pussy for dealing with this stuff and seeing a therapist. So like, I know firsthand what it's like to kind of not have that stuff taken seriously, and it sucks, but it's a very good way of weeding out the bad in your life and the negativity. And I think the more open you are about this stuff, the more, you can just feel comfortable in the thoughts that you're going through, and
Yeah.
it's just more beneficial.
And honestly, I think like I would encourage everyone to do is start, like, don't have to become an expert, but just kind of research a little bit of what are signs of depression, what are signs of major anxiety for people, right? Like, I think the more people can get educated about what occurs when that stuff happens, the more sympathetic they'll be when someone's like, hey, I'm depressed, like I don't know what's going on, right? And like, for me personally, looking back on my life, I wish I had seen signs of depression, signs of mental illness earlier, because then I know I couldn't change what happened with my mom, whatever. She was in such a dark place. But if maybe potentially I could have done something, right? But I'm not going to hold myself to that. But if everyone looks up signs of depression, mental illness, and just kind of is aware, I think it would make a big difference in our society as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know from firsthand experience that, signs of depression, anxiety, it's just isolation, people kind of removing themselves from situations socially or just in general, and change of behavior and appetite. If you notice those things, I know those are some big signs. Pierce, if you can kind of reflect on what were some of the signs that you noticed for someone who, could kind of look at and see, just what were the things that you learned as far as like telltale signs of, hey, this person struggling.
Yeah. So honestly, like the major ones that you just talked about, right? People just kind of not being themselves too. And it's a lot of times it's hard to notice. Like if you
It
have a
is.
buddy getting quieter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just hasn't said as much, maybe just looks a little off, withdrawing themselves, and you invite them out places, they're saying no more often, right? Just little things. The eating, the appetite stuff, like there's a lot of eating disorders that probably don't get noticed for people. And but if we make ourselves aware of that stuff, potentially could help one person, it's worth it, right? So spend 10 minutes of your time researching. There's a lot of good Instagram accounts too that talk about all this stuff, or even Google. Like I've read multiple articles. I wish I could give you a complete reference right now, but
Yeah, no worries.
off the top of my head. But there's a lot of good causes too, and organizations that you can look at and see all this information better than I can give it to you.
Yeah, no, of course. But no, I mean, I think first-hand experience is the most important. I think we all, well, I think obviously Googling this up is great, but I think, when you hear from people who experience it firsthand, I think it holds a lot of weight. So,
without question, man. I mean, if I tell my story, right, people are like, okay, well, I didn't know he went through that. So
yeah,
maybe what I'm saying holds some value to a counselor is effective, or whoever you need to talk to, a psychiatrist, right? Who, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, and I think this is going to be huge for people to listen to, and it's going to be so impactful, man. I'm super grateful and fortunate that you were, willing to come on and tell your story and talk about this stuff. So I thank you so much for that.
Of course, bro. Anytime. We're more than happy to come on and just talk about whatever, man. We've been through a lot together, man.
Yeah, seriously. No,
but
definitely.
by the way, that Instagram account is called The Real Depression Project, and they got some good stuff. So
perfect. Yeah, so everyone check that out. We can link it down below in the notes. But switching gears to, some lighter note, like, talk about your, hockey for you and the future and, kind of how the year went for you this past year. I know it was a funky year, COVID year. Talk about that
Yeah.
experience. A lot of people didn't really get like the inside scoop on like what, how it was. So if you can kind of fill everybody in from the hockey side of things.
Yeah, so it's good. Last year specifically played in Grand Rapids, COVID year, man. It was crazy. We were getting swabbed every day. We had to wear masks all over the place, right? So normally American League, you do night before trips, right? So we're going Grand Rapids to Cleveland, Grand Rapids to Chicago, to Rockford, Illinois, all this stuff. So normally we go the night before. The entire year we bus day of. So we'd leave at 11 or 12, bus 4 hours, get to the rink, play the game, bus 4 hours home. So it was a long year, man. But personally, I did well. And, I thought I was happy with my performance. Put up some pretty good numbers that I was, kind of shooting for that. So hit all the stuff that I wanted to. And I think spending 7 months training in the off season had something to do with that. But
Of course.
hopefully my ultimate goal is the NHL, obviously. So hopefully I get a crack at that at some point.
Yeah.
See what happens from there.
Well, we're obviously rooting for you here. And then as far as like the summer goes, what do you got in store? Anything exciting or summer plans, training, all that sort of stuff?
Just training, man. Working out, skating, enjoying my weekends with buddies. Hang out with Mitch Fossey down here, so that's cool. Yeah, go to the lake, work out, skate at the cooler in the Alpharetta Family Skate Center.
Yeah.
Atlanta area. Let me know if you're around. I'll take you out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then that's about it. Going down to Florida this weekend, so gonna try and get some sun if it doesn't hurricane on me.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Well, awesome, Pierce. Thanks so much, man. Really appreciate it, and obviously, best of luck. We'll obviously be in touch. You know that, but just really appreciative of you. Like I said, being vulnerable, open, and talking about this stuff. It's never easy, but you're paving the way for other people to feel more comfortable and understand that hey, it's okay. Things happen. And you're being strong by doing this, and it's gonna open up some doors for other people to feel more comfortable and talk about it more. So, yeah, I appreciate it, man, and thank you. It's good to hear from you.
Yeah, of course. Happy to come on anytime, man. And this is fun. I'm glad that we can finally do this.
Yeah, no doubt.